Hello, very dramatic intro, I must say, that I've devised there. We are here to talk about Sunderland, the 2025-26 Premier League season. I am joined by Roker Reports, Jonny Hawley, Mr. Podcast himself. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, mate. Nice to have yet another avenue to explore the discussion around Sunderland this summer, which is, it's been perfect time to get into becoming a talking head about this club, hasn't it? Because there's never been a dull moment. So, I'm feeling good, really excited for the season. Just cannot wait for Saturday afternoon now. Really, really excited, great time, and can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, you remind me of like the playoffs, because in the playoffs, I think a lot of people probably feel the same way, but I was consuming content. I was like, right, I'm going to Cack's not even there. Harry Gav. There he is. In there really goes. But you reminded, I know. You reminded me though of the playoff run. Like listen the Sportsman, Roker Report, all them sorts of things. You were just all over it. I think you were on like the Sheffield United podcast. So I've got positive memories of seeing your face. I'm hoping that vibe will come onto this channel.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad playoff run to have your face associated with, is it? I mean, 88th minute goal at Coventry, last minute winner at home, last minute winner at Wembley. I'll take that. And if the season goes even 10% as well as that playoff run did, then we'll be staying up comfortably with weeks to spare. So, hopefully that's a good omen. And I'm not about to, turn into the omen of relegation, the Aaron Ramsdale of podcasts.
The Aaron Ramsdale podcast. Well, hopefully he does another relegation this season. That would be nice. Fingers crossed. Right, let's talk transfers. Let's get into the thick of transfer business, because obviously we all know who Sunderland signed, but it is nice to sort of run through this, considering we spent like 140 million quid. It's been a crazy transfer window. So let's run through it. Enzo Lefebvre, 19.3 million. Habib Diarra, 30 million. Noah Sadiki, 17.5 million. Ronaldo was a free. Chemsden Talby, 19.5 million. Simon Adingra, 21 million. Granit Xhaka, 17.3 million. Robin Roefs, 11.5 million. Masuaku was a free transfer. Alderete, 10.4 million. And just putting you on the spot, Jonny, which one of them are you most excited about? Other than Granit Xhaka. I'm not giving you the Granit Xhaka, get out.
Well, I was going to say Xhaka's the obvious one, but I don't want to pick him because it is too boring. I think out of the others, I was most excited about Diarra, not just because obviously he was the most expensive, but probably some of the highest pedigree, off the back of a goal against England, some great domestic football as well. So I was really excited by him. But actually, since he's come in pre-season, Noah Sadiki, I think, has looked excellent in the middle of that midfield. I think he looks like a real find. And I think probably when he was brought in, they would have earmarked him as, a rotation youth bench option, a development season basically for him. But I think he might well have played his way into Labrisse's plans for a much bigger role through the season, which, like I say, if he starts the season the way that he's played in the pre-season friendlies, then I think, the sky's the limit for him, really. I think he looks like such a versatile midfielder, really, really rounded game. Which is, you don't often find that in players who are that young as well. So yeah, I mean, and obviously Adingra and Talby being the attacking options as well. You want to see them getting goals and assists, but I think Sadiki for me has the potential to be, even though he cost about 20 million, has the potential to be a real bargain. So yeah, hopeful to see him have a big season.
Yeah, we've got a nice early bit of Newcastle there. How many are we going to stick past the Mags? I don't want to get stuck on that one this early in the season.
9 in the first half at the stage of my life.
9. Okay, we'll go with that. I would take 9 over both games. That's probably a pretty...
I'd snap your hand off for 9 over both games.
Yeah, that would be pretty nice.
On a serious note, I think we at least will give them a game. I think because we were just talking about the FA Cup game, weren't we, a couple of seasons ago? That was obviously a mismatch. But I feel like this season, with the business we've done, linking back to the transfers, I do think we've at least got a team where I wouldn't go into any games barring the sort of top 3 or 4 away from home thinking, yeah, we're definitely getting battered today. I think every other game we're at least going to be able to handle ourselves. So yeah, that's a bit of a fence-sitting way of saying I don't think we'll get smashed by the Mags, but I'm not necessarily lumping on 3-0 at St James's just yet.
We do love a 3-0 at St James's, so you never know. They could have a disaster. I remember Forest beat them 4-1 a couple of years ago, maybe last season or the season before, so you never know. It could
There's
happen.
the blueprint.
Yeah, there's the blueprint. Let's go back to the start of the summer, though. So Sunderland win the playoff final. So I was actually convinced, and you can ask my friends as well about this. I was like pretty adamant Sunderland were getting promoted. I was very confident heading into the playoff final. Just because of the Ballard goal, I was like, well, we have to get promoted here.
Yeah.
So on the drive, on the way up, we drove to Watford. That's where we stayed. So we're driving to Watford, and I was saying to the lads in the car, I was like, what do you think we should do in the Premier League in terms of transfers next season? And they were like, well, hang on. You talking about the Premier League for? And I was like, nah, we'll definitely be going up. I was like, well, hypothetically then, what would you do? And we all sort of agreed that we'd probably buy like 5 players for like maybe a combined 80 million and then maybe loan a couple of players. So to see 11 come in, and Lebris today in his press conference said there might be like 3 more. It's pretty wild. I did not see that coming. Did you think Sunderland would spend this much and bring in this many players?
No, not for a second. I was much less confident in you going into the playoff final as well. When that second goal that never was went in the first half, I was considering walking straight out the ground and going home, me. But yeah, no, I think, in the immediate aftermath of that, then, same with me and my mates and my dad and that, we were having them conversations, what do we think we're going to do? And if you'd said to us then, that morning after Wembley, even as euphoric as we were, in a few months' time, we're going to have spent neck end of 150 million. We're going to have a guy who came 16th in the Ballon d'Or, and we're going to have Enzo Lefebvre. And this, I've just seen another comment or two about this as well. We're going to have Enzo Lefebvre break the club record signing at the start of the window, and possibly not make the first 11 of the first game of the season. I think that's just beyond your wildest dreams, isn't it? So I was expecting much more along the lines of what you said, a few bigger money signings, predominantly with an eye on the future, which, a lot of them are still being young lads, but I thought we'd be abusing the frees and loans to try and bulk out the squad and try and concentrate the money on, the few quality additions. But Kirill's just gone, nah, I tell you what, Mum, give us a couple £100 million. We'll go out and just sign half of Europe. So, yeah, shocked, but in a really good way.
Yeah, you said abuse frees and loans. We've just abused the transfer market altogether this summer.
Yeah, we've abused the continent of Africa specifically in terms of just going, all of your best international players, we'll just have them.
Yeah, hopefully nobody clips that abused all of Africa there.
Clip that and I get arrested. Cheers,
So we talked before, well, I mentioned before, Lebris had said potentially 3 more coming in. I think Keith Downey, got that little bit on his ex now that he loves the lads. Although he claims he always did. So I'm not getting involved in the Keith Downey. I love Keith. Thumb up for Keith. He thought he'd got that in. He says Lebris hinted 3 new players coming in. So for me, that's another centre-back. That's possibly a cover right-back, and then some sort of forward player. For me, centre-back, right-back, left winger who can maybe play up front. That's kind of what I'm seeing. Do you think anywhere else?
I think if you're being really greedy, you would want a winger, as the comment says, and you'd want you probably would want another centre forward if you were being really greedy. I know we've got 3 for basically one position with Isidore Mayenda and now Gue coming in from Chelsea, but you're going to have injuries, you're going to have loss of form. Mayenda and Isidore can both cover out wide as well. And especially off the back of the Romain Mundle news, which, came out after the press conference this afternoon as well, that he's out for at least another couple of months. And as well, that's 3 bad hamstring injuries in the space of 12 months. You've got to ask questions about his durability. So just with the sheer amount of chopping and changing we might need to do in them front 3 positions, I think if you're greedy, you want a striker. But you said it. A centre back, another centre back is just has to be done. We don't have the bodies, and it would free up Jensen Seelt to possibly go out on loan as well. I mean, he's another who just needs football. He's had so many injuries; he needs to play. So yeah, centre back, full back cover. Totally agree. And if I'm picking one of a winger or a striker, I think another winger probably shades it. But I wouldn't turn down a little Fabrizio Romano. Here we go for a number 9. Like, I'd take that.
Yeah, another comment in there. Tasty loans. yeah, Sunderland have used the loan market pretty well, to be fair to them, over the last few years. Like, we had a cracking Chris Mepham and I suppose Sadis Abdul Samad, who was vibes, I suppose, wasn't he? He was just vibes.
Yeah, ultimate
but
vibes.
He made the difference. He would have been the 1%.
On the subject of the loans, though, it's usually near the end of the window they happen, isn't it? Especially in the Premier League. Do you think, because we've got Guew in from Chelsea, he's your stereotypical young kid from a big Premier League academy, needs minutes. Do you think we're more likely to look domestically or abroad for those loans towards the end of the window? Because I can't make my mind up whether I think would be more towards, the Guew side of things, or looking at the likes of a Samed, but obviously a level up where it's somebody on the fringes with, needs a bit of football. I'm not sure where I think we'd go.
Well, I think we're only allowed one more domestic Premier League loan. I think you're only allowed 2 in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think it's 2 domestic and then another 2 from the continent you're allowed. Well, I mean, not just
I thought you were allowed anywhere. I thought you were allowed loads from the continent. I didn't think there was a limit on the continent. I know. This is me being a football manager, and I'm sure it's 2 domestic and you're allowed 5 loans in your match day squad. I think that's the rules on Football Manager.
That might be right. Actually, I think I'm just trying to make the difference between the 2 domestic and the other ones. Going, oh yeah, that's how many it is.
Yeah, so I think you're allowed a few. So, I think they'll definitely make use of the other domestic loan. And also we haven't done the loan with obligation. If we stay up, and that's a big one you see in the Premier League, don't you? You often see and you saw us do it in the Championship where we're we'll take Enzo Lafay, and if we go up, we'll get him for a bargain. You could see us do that. I mean, we got stung with Ricky Alvarez with that, to be fair. So you don't want to go too heavy on that. But I could maybe see us doing one of them if it's a top level player, possibly the centre back, who they're we don't want to dish it out now, but maybe we'll give you 30 million at the end of the season if we stay up. I don't know. It's hard, isn't it, to decide what the thinking is.
Because we were such an easy club to predict 12, 24, 36 months ago. It was just, we'll sign a load of children. That's what we'll do. All the signings will be 18 to 21. They'll all come from the continent, and you'll get a couple of loans in. Oh, I tell you what, I'll take that. Black Cats TV, you can come back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think even if you're the ugly brother,
Exactly. If you're the ugly Roberts brother, you're still in the top 10%.
Yeah. I think that's a big one. I'll have a look at a few of the other comments. There's some asking about the West Ham game, which we'll come on to at the end. There's a suggestion of Manor Solomon. He did pretty well at Leeds last year, to be fair, but I would guess Leeds would probably want him if he was available.
It wouldn't move us too much. I wouldn't be over them. I mean, Brian Hill, technically gifted player, but it's just another one where you worry about these lads coping with the Prem, because if you're at a Prem club and you've got anything about you, you're probably not getting shipped out all the time. Hill especially, he just spends his career on loan at the minute. This might be a little bit beggars can't be choosers. I might be a bit above my station trying to turn these players down, but I would hope we'd be looking a bit more like what you just said, Connor, about those kind of players where it's a loan with an obligation or an option to buy, and you just basically defer in the payments. I'd prefer to see that rather than this, but as I say, we are new to the Prem, so if it's that or nothing, then maybe you take the plunge. But I'd like us to go a bit higher than that.
I can easily convince myself. Transfers, especially with the window we've had, even if we were signing Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I saw a bit of a meltdown with Leeds fans yesterday with that one. And fans of other clubs being thank God it's not us. But I can easily convince myself on any player we sign. If we bought Manor Solomon, I'd be making a video going, look at these dribbling stats and that.
Oh, yeah. If we sign Calvert-Lewin, I'd be writing an article right now he did get, double figures in the Premier League a few seasons ago, and he's got lots of games under his belt. Called up for England once, We're all fickle, aren't we? We're all hypocrites at the end of the day. But I'd hope we've got ideas slightly above those particular players.
Which of the current long-serving players? And it's mad. I saw it might have been Roker report today, put a thing on Dennis Serkin, maybe he made his debut 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was. It's crazy how many of these players we've actually had for ages. Dan Neil, Trey Hume was signed in League One. Patterson's been there for donkeys yet. I mean, I remember in the 18-19 playoff final, I think Patterson was maybe the third choice. He was definitely there, is the club, and that's such a long time ago, and he's still pretty young. But which one of these long-serving players are you most excited to see in the Premier League? Whether or not you think they're going to be good, or just the sentimental of the Luke O'Nien being Like when you were putting that seat in, and the guy was like, "One day maybe you'll play for Sunderland."
Yeah, it's 09, isn't it? Like he's the one that you're just desperate for him to get a game, play well, and somehow just turn into a Premier League quality centre back. The same way that he has done the last couple of divisions. You know, he wasn't good enough in League One, then he was good enough. Then it was the Championship, and he wouldn't be good enough. And then, oh well, he's not actually a centre back. And then he was a centre back, and he was good enough. And then we got promoted, and now it's he'll never be a Premier League player. You know, he's not good enough to play in the Premier League. Let's all be honest. I'd love to see him just turn it round and have a belter of a season. You know, get like a goal against the Mags and something like that. That would be amazing. But I think one of the ones who I actually think will step up as well, I think, is Trey Hume. I think he is just the epitome of what you want in like a Premier League Sunderland fullback. He's aggressive, committed, decent enough on the ball going forward, but he just loves crunching people. I mean, that tackle on Brereton Diaz in the playoff final, that lives long in all of our memories. So I think 09 sentimentally, but I think Hume, he will, I think, step up, and I think he'll take to the Premier League. I was going to say like a duck to water, and I thought that's a little bit much, but I think he'll really suit it.
Well, the club obviously think it because they gave him a good contract. And my favourite Trey Hume tackle is the one he did against James McLean. Like Wigan, it was like a Wigan away game. Like we'll beat them 4-1. Wigan were hopeless. They had Kolo Toure and Trey Hume just for no reason. Like just nearly ended James McLean's career.
Yeah, that was top of that. Like, and when you say for no reason, I wonder why the Northern Irish right back might have had one or two just slight niggles with James McLean, you know, and some of his statements over the past gestures at his entire career, you know.
Yeah.
But it's brilliant that you could make, most players you go, oh, we'll make a goal compilation. With Hume, you could just make a snapping people into another dimension compilation, and you'd have 10 or 15 easily.
You could also do goals, to be fair, because he scored himself a few goals. Like, he's a goal-scoring right back.
He's underrated, I think, in how good he is on the ball and going forward. I think last season he got 9, I think, goals and assists combined from right back, which, you know, obviously we were a good team and that's why we got promoted. But for any team in any division, defenders chipping in with that many goal involvements, I think you're on to a winner there.
I presume Holm must be Hume.
I hope so. Can you smell burning toast? No, you're all right. Sound.
Must add that was pre-signings. There you are.
But that is a good point though, because I think it's easy to forget because nobody is talking about the leadership group too often. But Hume was made one of the 4 or 5 members of that leadership group at the start of last season. You know, we had, obviously Dan Neil was the on-pitch captain. You had Luke O'Nien was one of them, Trey Hume and Alan Brown, I think, as well. So, you know, clearly the club have recognised that Hume's got that leadership and stuff in him. And he's captain Northern Ireland once or twice now as well, hasn't he? So I think, let's say 3 or 4 years, Hume's still here. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see him get the armband at some point. But obviously, there's a lot of football to be played and transfer windows to get through between now and then. But he's clearly going to be a captain wherever he is in the next few years.
Well, Holm, whoever Holm is, he's got an international captaincy. So there we go. Happy days, Black Cats TV. We love you, my friend. Let's talk about AFCON. And not because I want to talk about AFCON as in who's going to win it, but just because we seem to have a lot of African players. As you said, what was the phrase you said earlier? Abuse Africa, I think is what you said.
So yeah, keep repeating that. That's great for me.
Yeah. And I watched who was it? Conor McGilligan. I don't know if you would have seen him on the Sportsman. He's got a channel and he was talking about AFCON and the impact that could have on Sunderland because I don't know how many we'll have there. Like 5 or 6 players at AFCON. And it did kind of have me worried because we will play like Leeds in there. And I think we're going to play Crystal Palace as well. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe this is a big thing. How big of a deal do you think it is? And obviously the club will have thought about this when they were buying players, but does it sort of worry you?
Well, I mean, it's more of a problem than it would be if we didn't have 6 or 7 or however many players going. So it's going to impact the season. I think I was going to say you can almost write the games off that they're going to be missing. Now, obviously, you don't want to write any games off. Every single point that we can get this season is going to be massive. The Leeds game's huge on the 27th of December. That's the home game as well. So that is a big one that these players are going to miss. And you'd imagine that, well, I mean, they're all going to get called up, all the African players. And if they don't get called up, it probably means they're playing rubbish anyway. So, like, either way, we've got a problem. That's the game that I'd look at, and I would genuinely have concerns because, obviously, you know, a home game against a promoted team, that's a 6-pointer. Beyond that, though, a lot of the games in that period, Palace is another one, like you say, that's potentially winnable. But you know, we've got Man City in that time period. We'll have the FA Cup third round. Will be at the start of January. So there's games in there that you're less concerned about, I would say, and you can prioritize certain things over those games. So you know, with Diarra, for example, if it's we sign a player of Diarra's quality and lose him for AFCON, or we sign a worse player, I think you can justify signing Diarra and saying, look, we know he's going to miss a few games in a busy period of the season. It's not ideal, but it's better to have him for the other 32 or 33 and miss him for these 5 or 6 than it is to never have him. Injuries during the tournament are a big concern, but that's just the same with any international duty. I mean, it's easy to forget as well how many international breaks come thick and fast at the start of the season. I think you have 3 by November. So like any international break, you're hoping that people don't pick injuries up. You're hoping that people stay fit. But beyond that, I'm not panicking because I think I trust the club to have done the due diligence enough to identify, you know, if there were suitable alternatives who wouldn't miss a chunk of the season. I'm sure they'd have gone for them, but the fact that they've pulled the trigger on these signings tells me that, you know, the club are comfortable with it, and Labrise as well. And if they've not earned our trust by this point, and we can kind of let them get on with it a little bit, I don't know what they've got to do because, you know, getting promoted last season, I think was certainly beyond my expectations. So if they're happy with it, then I'm happy with it. But there is still that, you have that little bit of doubt hovering over you, but not too much.
Yeah, I mean, we're still going to have Granit Xhaka in there. So,
I mean, you're still going to have Xhaka. Pardon me, you're still going to have the likes of Mark Yu. You're still going to have also a lot of talented players who are already at the club. So I know he's injured at the minute, but Romain Mundle, assuming he's fit by then, he'll still be here. You'll have Dan Neil to step in the midfield. You've got, obviously, O'Nien can play anywhere and do some sort of job. So it's not like, Rig, exactly. Lefay, we've got, you know, a lot of players, and even the slightly less fancied players. So Patrick Roberts on topic, who a lot of people probably wouldn't say they want to see starting too many games. He's still got something to offer.
You would say that though if you're his brother.
yeah. I'll get me tenner off him, you know, in the brown envelope off screen after we finish.
Yeah, but I think Patrick Roberts is really interesting because, like, he's sort of been in the camp with like Dan Neil, hasn't he? Where it feels like they've sort of went, he's number 2, he's in the second string squad. But I think Patrick Roberts will translate in the Premier League pretty well. Like, he's such a good dribbler of the ball, and he has decent skills. We saw the ball he played in the playoffs, and I think he's been pretty unlucky with like nearly assists. His assist numbers aren't as high as they could be, but like the amount of times he puts the ball on a play for someone and they like skew it wide or something, I think he's been pretty like unlucky. It's weird to me that he's like behind Talby when I look at the two of them so far. I feel like Roberts probably offers us something a bit more than Talby right now.
Yeah, I think one day Talby is going to be a better footballer than Patrick Roberts, but that's not today. You know, and on Talby as well, I think he's taken a little bit of stick in pre-season because, you know, some of his performances he's flattered to deceive a bit. That's bang on about Roberts, by the way. Do everything else until you get to the 12 yards or the 6 yards and give it to someone else. Just run away from the ball. But yeah, Talby, I think, you know, he's had some frustrating games in pre-season and he's maybe struggled to impose himself. And I think a lot of the criticism has mainly centered around he's not seemed like he's wanted to take people on or be aggressive and take risks. But I think, you know, that'll come with time. He's obviously a young lad. He's just moved to a new country.
I've got a theory on this, you know, Johnny. I've got a theory.
What's
that Talby? My theory is that Talby has been told don't show people what you can do in that sense, because on the opening day they'll double
Secret
mark
weapon.
you. Yeah, I think like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but like there was a couple of times he did do it, and I was like, oh yeah, he does have this. Especially in the Betis game, there was a couple of times he cut in, and I just wonder if they were like, look, we know you can do this, but if you show this in pre-season, then every club will go, oh, he's a threat. We're gonna have to think about what we're doing. So I'm just wondering if maybe
Reggie playing absolute 7-dimensional underwater chess and trying to confuse the Premier League. I mean, I'd love to see it, but I think even if it's he's overawed at where he's come to, and not that I'm saying that Sunderland's some kind of ridiculous gargantuan club that everyone's terrified of, but
it is.
Obviously, I mean, I'm not saying that. I think that I'm not saying that. But he's a young lad. He's come to a new country and everything. He needs time to adapt. But even in the games where he's maybe not played at his best, I think you can just see his touch is there. He can play passes. Some of the passes he was playing, whatever the last game was, Augsburg. That was it on the Saturday. Some of the passes he was playing in behind and switching the play, you can tell that there's a footballer in there. You know what I mean? He's not some kind of complete bum who's turned up and who's going to stink the place out. It's just going to take him time. Whereas I think Roberts at the minute, he knows the team, he knows the system, he knows Lebris. He's probably a lot more comfortable in going out there on that first day against West Ham and knowing I can do what Lebris wants me to do. Whereas Talby, I think, and I agree with that comment as well, I think he's not going to want to put himself on the chopping block early doors and take too many risks and then, see himself out the team for 6 months. Whereas I think Roberts, he's probably got a bit more freedom in that it's like, yeah, everyone knows what we're going to get from Roberts, and Lebris knows him. He trusts him enough to have played him, the majority of last season and brought him on to change the game at Wembley. So I think it'll be an interesting one through the season to see how that develops, actually, and who kind of cements the position as their own. And obviously, all of this is pending if we bring another winger in between now and the start of September.
Yeah, Black Cats TV's the hype man. 27 watching, but only 4 likes. So there we are. People like the video. And he's also got a question, which I don't really think about these things really that much. I'm too focused on like the nitty gritty of how we're going to beat everyone. But will we have a flame show like the playoffs? And I can't remember when we first came into the championship when we played Coventry. I feel like there was like a display and stuff. I don't know if there was flames, but it felt like they'd done some big hype. And I know Wolves, I think, do flames for like every game. I think even Birmingham do it, don't they? I was watching that stupid Tom Brady thing the other day. I'm sure they have it for games. Yeah, we could do another half hour on Tom Brady.
I'm so glad not to be in the same league as Birmingham and Wrexham, by the way. Thank God we avoided that circus.
Yeah, he comes across as a right tool on that document. He did Wayne Rooney dirty. Anyway, that's by the by. That could be a discussion off air. Do you think they'll do like a flame show and a tifo and all that wonderful stuff, or do you think they'll try and like keep it low key?
Before I'd seen all the new murals and stuff and all the painting that they've done in all the concourses, I'd have said probably not. But actually, they've how much is it? I think they've put over 10 million quid into the stadium this summer in all of in totality of everything. They've done out all the bars. They've put these new, robot pint machines that pour pints for you. Of all the murals and stuff. They've done out the media centre, and the list goes on. Loads of stuff. And if they've been putting that much attention to detail into even the smallest things like the concourses and the painting and that, then maybe they will. I thought, because the first time we did the Flames was the League One playoff semis against Sheffield at home. And I thought it looked great then, but I thought, oh, why, that's it, like one and done. Then we brought it back out for the next playoffs and then the next one. So clearly they're leaning into the whole showmanship side of stuff and the foghorn light show before kick-off, which I'm less of a fan of. So I actually would be surprised if they didn't do something special at this point. I just don't know whether it's going to be flames. I wonder what the health and safety risk assessments are like for those. I wouldn't fancy filling those forms in.
Do you know what? I have like a feeling, right? And I could be totally off here. But I think, do you know that horn before they like the full-on foghorn? I think they might try that after like a goal. Do you know, like how they do it in like the NHL and stuff?
Yes,
I just
know
have like a
exactly.
little feeling that they might like try that. I don't know if it would stick. I think the fans would like hate it. And this is no insider information. This is me when I've heard the horn and them trying to bring it in, the light show and all that stuff. I was like, and also that David Bruce's name, who's the like, I don't know, it's the CEO. He's from the MLS and they do all the horns and all that sort of stuff. Just sort of thinking, I was like, is that where we're going with this? Like they've done a really good job of blending the Americanization, which I love what they've done with the ground. I love what they've done with like the tifos for the big games. And I love that there are certain games that feel massive. They did it for the Middlesbrough game, which I think is actually the background of the StreamYard thing. Like they've done all that sort of stuff. And I just wonder if maybe they'll take it another step. Maybe we'll get like a goal horn.
Oh, see, you're right. I think they've treaded a fine line very well between over-Americanizing and also modernizing. And I think they've not pissed too many people off. They've been pretty good. If we start getting sound effects and music when we score, I think it's time to wrap it in, lads. Send the season card back, rip the tickets up. If we get goal music, I think I'm finished. I can't do that.
No, I didn't say goal music. I said just a horn.
But that's how they get you. That's how it starts. That's the foot in the door. First it's a horn, then it's 5 seconds of music, then it's 30 seconds. Oh, God.
What's the Zombie Nations always the one, isn't it? The do. That's the one you hear.
Yeah, no, none of that for me. That's my most like me dad opinion is all of that stuff needs to be stamped out of football. Paint the concourses, put the murals up, do the flags. Perfect. Leave the goals alone.
Okay, well that was a nice interlude. There we are. Let's talk though. Right, this is a big one. So we're back on the serious stuff now. Who are the teams that are going to be in the shit this season? And when I say that, what I mean is like, look, like love Sunderland and I think they're brilliant, but like I'm realistic. I know that the chances are they're probably going to be in the bottom 5 or 6. And like I saw that supercomputer the other day opted in. They were like the only team in 10,000 things that didn't win the Premier League. So like I get it. I get that like Sunderland are, they're going to be in the bottom end of the league, but because of that, you have to look at like who else is going to be bad and who else could potentially suck and sort of give us a chance of sort of thriving. I have a few that I think, but I'd be interested if there's anyone that you're looking at and thinking they're going to be rubbish.
Yeah, the big ones are Brentford, Wolves, and then West Ham less so. Burnley as well. I mean, with the greatest of respect, nothing against Burnley. I'm sorry, lads, you're rubbish. You are definitely going down. Leeds, I'd be a massive hypocrite to say I think we've got a decent chance of staying up and not to say that Leeds do, I think, because they had a better starting squad than us. And they haven't had a better window than us, but they've had a reasonably comparable window, I think. They've made some pretty good signings. They've signed a lot of physicality as well, which I think is important in the Premier League. But Burnley, I saw the other day that they've spent about 115, 120 million euros this summer as well. And I was thinking, where the hell has that money gone? Like, what have they got for that? I think most of the money they've spent's gone on loans they had last season, making them permanent. So, if you're spending 100 million to stand still, you're in bother. But yeah, I think Brentford, obviously, they've lost Thomas Frank. That's huge. They've lost Mbeumo to Man United. It looks like Visser's probably going to be on his way as well. Henderson, we all love him. 36 years old. They've lost, is it Norgard? They've lost to Arsenal as well in the midfield. That's a tricky one to try and manage. And then Wolves as well. I mean, they've got a really good manager, Wolves, in Bruno Lage. Is it still Bruno Lage? No, it's not Bruno Lage.
You're about 3 years out there.
Vitor Pereira.
You've missed a Gary O'Neill in the middle there.
Yeah. Where did I just pull Bruno Lage from? Anyway, that was horrendous. But yeah, I think they've got a good manager in Vitor Pereira. Loves a pint. But they also, obviously, they've lost Cunha, they've lost Ryan Ait-Nouri. So, I mean, they've brought some decent players in to replace them, but there's always uncertainty when you're having a bit of turnover. And then West Ham, I just don't see it with Graham Potter. I don't think he suits them. I don't think they've warmed to him. I'm never inspired by West Ham as well. You know, I look at their summer transfer dealings basically every season. I'm just like, it's all right, but it's not. You're not moving up a level. So I think if they continue to flounder a bit, I think they're another one we could look at with half an eye on and think, yeah, actually, we could possibly reel you in. And then my real rogue shout, and I'll be honest, this is looking less likely after the Community Shield, is Crystal Palace, because they've obviously got Europe for the first time, and they had all the palaver about whether they're going to be in the Europa or the Conference. They've dropped down to the Conference, which obviously terrible for them, and a disgrace to football generally, that ruling. But they're going to have a much better chance of winning it. So they're going to be wanting to play strong teams in that competition. They haven't got the most amount of squad depth in the world, and their managers come out this summer as well, publicly bemoaning the lack of transfer activity, talking about how the squad isn't ready to compete on all fronts. Now, it would take a spectacular set of catastrophes to all happen in a row at Palace for them to actually end up anywhere near the bottom three. But they're my one, like, totally outside shout where I look into the genuine mid-table teams. I think if things start to unravel, they could be the one. But then, yeah, it's the boring answers apart from that. Brentford, West Ham, Wolves, and then Burnley and Leeds.
Yeah. Palace lose Eze and Gay, they'll be in massive trouble. To be fair, yeah, that is right as well. But
I mean, Gay as well, he's only got a year left on his contract, so they're not going to be getting the amount of money he's actually worth. Mil. Yeah, 35 mil. You're not buying a player as good as Gay for that. Certainly
Wolves,
not in the window.
You say like Wolves is like a funny one because I don't think Wolves are as bad as people think. Like they were good at the end of last season, but I mean they've got like 2 Brazil internationals in centre mid and stuff. Like they are a good team. Like it's going to be so difficult for us to overhaul a team like that. I worry most about West Ham and Brentford. They're the two that I think will target, and we play them. We play 3 of the teams that I think are potentially going down in our first 3. So if we don't really do well, then I'm going to be a bit concerned if we don't have, say, 6 or 7 points from their first 3 games, because I think they are all going to be down there.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because the fixtures come out and you look at the obviously, you know, you look for the mags, you look for, you know, Boxing Day, last day of the season, that kind of thing. But obviously, you look at the first 5 because you want to know how the season's going to start. I looked at the first 5, I was like, wow, they're quite winnable games, actually, those.
Yeah.
So you're happy. And then I thought, oh, God, that means if we don't hit the ground running, we get our 5 or 6 really winnable games out the way, then you're looking in trouble. I think if we've got any fewer than 6 or 7 points from the first 5 games, you're already starting to look, well, I was going to say look over your shoulder. There won't be much to look over your shoulder at if you don't get 6 or 7 points in them first few games. It's a bit of a blessing and a curse, isn't it? Like, having a decent run means you can pick up points, but it does lump the pressure on a bit.
Yeah, I was listening to the Guardian's preview, which I wouldn't necessarily advise people listening to, because like the guys who are doing it, one of them was like Sean Longstaff's like, you know, really getting on age, his legs have gone. They're like, he's 28, mate. So it's like, how much research is going in? I don't know. But one of them pulled out a stat that was, if the newly promoted team does not have 8 points by the 5th game, then they always get relegated. Apparently that's a statistic. I don't know how accurate that is, but it feels about right, doesn't it? That you need to pick up, you need to have a decent-ish start of the season. Because Ipswich, I think last year, like drew loads of games. They really struggled to win. I think they won 1 home game all season as well, which is like massive. And I think Thomas Frank had said, didn't he, on a Monday Night Football, you have to be good at set pieces and win home games. They were like the 2 main pillars of how he kept Brentford up. So
yeah. Well, I mean, you basically have to be going at least a point a game, don't you? Like, as a general rule to stay up in the Premier League, if you've got a point a game, you're getting 38 points. It's probably keeping you up. But even more than that, there was a BBC Sport article the other day that was going through how many points you need from your first 10 games if you're a promoted team to stay up. So over the last 10 years, there's been, 30 teams, 3 a season. And there were only 2 teams that got fewer than 11 points in the first 10 and actually survived. Only 2. And then if you got 11 points or more, it was, 80% of them were staying up. So, but maybe even more. So yeah, if obviously the first 5, is not as many games as 10. Groundbreaking analysis here, lad. 5's less than 10. But if you get 6 or 7 out your first 5, then you only need to get another 4 or 5 points from the next 5.
Yeah.
You're up to that 11 mark, and you've got a platform to build on. If you get 3 or 4 points out your first 5, then the pressure's on again. And it's all just like the pressure just cumulatively builds through the season. The further behind you are, the more catch-up you're playing, the bigger the pressure. And that's something that we haven't necessarily seen. Well, we haven't seen this Sunderland squad do anything because we've signed 11 players. So, it's all brand new to us, really. But we haven't seen a Sunderland team in this sort of pressure for a long time. We haven't been in a relegation battle. And I'm not counting the double relegations as relegation battles because they weren't battles, were they? They were foregone conclusions after a while. We've not been in a proper scrap at the bottom end of a table for, over 10 years at this point. So, yeah, it's something that we're yet to see from this current group of players. So, they might be fine. They might handle it like nobody's business and, it doesn't matter how many points they are behind, they just rock up and play. But I think, you don't want to have that pressure eaten away at people from 5-10 games into the season. You want to be on an even keel as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that double relegation, you remind us of David Moyes saying we're in a relegation battle after 2 games, and he was wrong, because we were never in a battle. We were never in the relegation battle.
I've never forgiven him for that. God. So many things I want to say about David Moyes, but never mind arrested. I'd get shot and killed at dawn by his family for them.
Looking though, we're talking about getting the points on the board, and one of the things that concerns me, if you're doing that, you have to have certain points by a certain point. We have to have a lot of points by December because of how horrific our December is, and then the AFCON thing going into January. Like, we're gonna have to be probably above a point per game pace until December. So then, when we get to February, we've hopefully added like a few new players and whatnot. We then have a chance of rebuilding again, because we've got a horrific December, and then my players go away. Like, we've got to play over Christmas, Leeds at home, which is massive, Man City at home, which, to be fair, stranger things, we have beaten Man City at home over Christmas before. Tottenham away though, Brentford away, which is a massive game to not have, potentially some of your star players. Crystal Palace at home is a massive game, in West Ham away. Like, it feels like though it could be a detrimental period, that sort of December.
Yeah,
January.
I totally agree. You look at the fixtures on paper, you look at obviously the AFCON that we've talked about and stuff like that. It's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. But if you want to put your optimistic hat on, the first 3 games of December, Liverpool away, City away, then Newcastle at home, I think, all pretty tightly spaced. I mean, certainly the Liverpool and City games are, 3 days apart or something? Now, yes, we expect that it's going to be, 4-0 Liverpool, 4-0 City, and then it's the mag, so anything can happen. But if you take a point or 2 off Liverpool and City, maybe you get, you beat one. So even if, Liverpool might turn us over 6-0, but if we then a few days later go and nick a 1-0 at the Etihad, and then against the Mags, you never know what could happen. It's going to be a hell of an atmosphere. It's going to be a great day to be in the Stadium of Light. If you could sneak a couple of results early doors, that takes so much pressure off the rest of that period. Once the players do go to AFCON, if we've nicked a few points just before they go, then the lads who come in, it's much less of a, you're being chucked in right at the deep end. It's a lot easier of a transition back into the team, I think, basically. And then, I mean, we've said it a couple of times, Leeds at home on the 27th. That could not have been timed worse. It couldn't have picked a worse place in the calendar to put that game. But the other thing with AFCON is, we've got players going for different nations. They're not all going to go the distance. Obviously, Adingra with Ivory Coast, they tend to be either winning it or in the final. But DR Congo, the Sadiki's going to be there with, and I think Masuaku plays for those as well. They're much less likely to go all the way. We may have them trickling back in 1 or 2 at a time over the the couple of weeks before the tournament ends. So it's not necessarily the case that however many it is, 6 or 7, all go on the same flight on one day and all come back, all at the same time. It's going to be a little bit little bit horses for courses, I think, in those few games as they start trickling back. We're going to have to just make do and mend a bit. But, it doesn't have to be the end of the world, that period. Although I do fully admit that it might be.
Not everyone qualifies for it, though. Am I right in saying? Like, I think we're all just... I don't know. That could be totally wrong here, by the way. I am not knowledgeable on the African Cup of Nations. But not everyone might qualify, potentially.
I would suspect qualifying's probably already happened.
Oh, you're the African football expert now.
I haven't actually got a clue. I just assume that if it's, the tournament's only a few months away, they've probably already done the qualifications. But
someone in the comments can do a bit of research on my forward to see if everyone's qualified.
Yeah, there you go.
Or there's still qualification to do.
Well, Korea Mode Thane has correctly pointed out that Ronaldo plays for Mozambique. Now, again, no disrespect, but the Mozambique national team is not chock full of talent. Ronaldo's not going to be there for 6 weeks.
Go on, name us some Mozambique players other than Ronaldo. Not chock full of talent.
Yeah, great player in. Yeah. So let's
move on.
If anything, not being able to name them proves my point.
That is true. Good. That is true. Right, let's talk about West Ham, opening day of the season. We had a comment right at the start that I can't be bothered to scroll back and find, but somebody talking about whether or not Lefebvre is going to start, essentially. But I want to start first with centre-back, because I think today, Reggie, I think he was basically saying that Alderete can play. He was saying Alderete won't start, but I think everything in his eyes was telling me Alderete is starting. That's the impression I got. Not sure. He's only played 45 minutes. But if there's a chance you go into that game and you've got one of La Liga's top centre-backs who's able to play, you go with that over Jensen Seelt, who, while he's had a good pre-season, is completely unproven even at championship level.
Oh, yeah. It's a no-brainer, isn't it? On that Saturday morning or on the Friday evening, whenever they do the fitness tests and they work out, is somebody able to play? If there's any chance Alderete is fit, then he starts. I think it's the pedigree speaks for itself. His ability is obviously not in question. What's in question is his fitness, and obviously, can he adapt that quickly? Obviously, he's an experienced player, so it's not like he's going to be overawed by the sense of occasion or anything. But again, as we said before, new club, new country, new teammates, new staff, everything, new style of play, the lot. Is he going to be comfortable and confident enough that he can go out and do his job properly on the pitch at such short notice? If he is, then I think you play him. As long as he's not carrying some sort of knock, and as long as he's up for it, I think you play him. Seelt, I won't be gutted if Seelt starts. I think he's acquitted himself all right in pre-season. I think he's certainly not proven his fitness because it's only a handful of friendlies, but he's got through a lot of games unscathed, and he's obviously trained and been put through his paces. So I'm not gonna scream and cry if Seelt's starting the season. I think we can still win the game with him in the team. But I don't think anybody would disagree that our chances of keeping a clean sheet and winning the game or getting the point go massively with Alderete and Seelt on the bench. And that's no knock on Seelt, but it's just a fact.
Yeah, well, we've got a team prediction in there at the bottom, and I think that's what I expect Sunderland will play. What about the Enzo Lefebvre issue where I don't know, just sort of don't know where to go with that one, because it felt like he was nailed on to be a starter, and then there was that weird thing last week where there were like rumors that he was unhappy and stuff, and then that was just kiboshed. Just no, that's not true. He's had injuries, and I do wonder if that's potentially some of it, but it feels to me like Xhaka, Sadiki, and Diarra is what we're settling on as a middle three, and I do really like that. The legs in there. You've got Xhaka, who, people talk about Xhaka like he's like a 50-year-old bloke and he can't move, but Xhaka can still move. He's very mobile. But then having them two with him, they are super mobile, box to box, full energy. That feels logical to me, but I do think the issue with that midfield three and just that team in general, this team here that I'll put back on the screen in general, is I just worry that without a Lefebvre in there, have you got a killer ball? Have you got someone to thread a needle, which is vital? You only get a few chances a game in the Premier League. that increases with Lefebvre playing, and maybe the thought process is potentially even, Lefebvre comes on for the last half an hour. If the game's tight, I think this will be a tight game. If the game's tight and can maybe change it, and you bring on Isidore maybe and go two up front, whatever it is you decide to do. So yeah, how do you see it playing? I haven't really asked you a question there. I've just kind of blurted a lot of words at you and just saying respond. So respond.
Okay, response beginning. I agree that I agree with that team. That I think that is what Lebris will do, with the possible exception of Alderete and Faciles, pending fitness and what have you. I think he's going to drop Lefebvre, and I think he's going to play Xhaka, Diarra, Sadiki. And like you said, there's plenty of logic there. You can see why. The legs, the pressing, the ability to impose themselves on the game against a West Ham team who more than likely are probably going to play a 5 at the back, with wing backs. That's what they've played through pre-season. So they're going to have a 3 in midfield. So it makes sense to match kind of man for man in that part of the pitch. And I think, Sadiki does that job better than Lefebvre does. So I totally get it. But I also agree with what you said about, without Lefebvre, looking at that team, I don't see anybody who can break the lines with a pass. I see Adingra and Talby who are quick, and Mayenda as well. I mean, let's not forget how good Mayenda is on the ball at beating people and being direct. But I see a lot of people who can get in behind if the ball's played there. I just don't see people who are going to play that pass. Now, obviously, Xhaka's got the quality to do it, but how much of the game is he going to spend in those attacking positions? I'd suggest probably not much. He's going to be deeper. He's going to be fulfilling a different role than Lefebvre would, which is, completely understandable. So I think personally, I'd like to see Lefebvre play. I would want to see him in there, because I also think one of our greatest strengths is our pace on the break, and we showed that a lot last season. I expect us to be similar moving forward. I would just worry if you bring Lefebvre on in the second half. Let's say we play that team, we keep it tight. It's 0-0 at half time. It's a 0-0 or 1-0 to West Ham even going into the sort of 60th minute. You think, right, we'll bring Lefebvre on. They're tiring a bit. Let's exploit them with our quick players who've just played the first 60 minutes of the game, and they're also tired and they're also not fresh. Now, yeah, you can bring an Isidore on off the bench, and that I'm sure Isidore's going to be a brilliant option for us from the start and off the bench through the season. But I just worry that you risk being too cautious for your own good. I think Lefebvre's so good on the ball and off the ball as well. He's no slouch defensively. He's just not a Diarra or a Sadiki. I think he's got enough about him that, like, we want West Ham to have somebody in our team there thinking, oof, I hope he doesn't get the ball. Oh, we need to stop him if he's on the ball. You can't spend your whole life worrying about what the opposition's going to do. So you need to offer something back the other way. And that's where I think Lefebvre would be perfect. But I see the logic. And yeah, I think Reggie's made it pretty clear with his team selections as well in pre-season who's going to start against West Ham and who's not. If you started against Augsburg, you've got a good chance of starting against West Ham. If you started against Rayo Vallecano, you're probably not. And Lefebvre played against Vallecano, so based off that, I think he's probably going to be starting from the bench. But that's it's a tough call. We've got 4, if not 5, quality midfielders, and we only play 3, so somebody's got to miss out every week.
We've got 6 really, unless you're not counting one of Rig O'Neill. You're being mean.
No, 6. Yeah, you're right. I just can't do maths. Yeah, somebody in the comments was on about feeling like GCSE maths before. I think I need to go back.
Yeah. Before we get into how we think the game will play out, just very quickly, Dan Neil lost the captaincy. Reggie had said today, I always call him Reggie. I don't know if I should call him Libri. Maybe it's disrespectful, but Reggie it is. Reggie said today, though, that he knew from within 10 minutes that Xhaka was going to be the captain. We also saw that report last week about Dan Neil wanting to stay for the season. I don't know what that means in terms of a new contract. I don't know. It's just something off there. I just still don't think that Dan Neil's future is long-term at Sunderland. Unless he signs a new contract as we record this video, which would be pretty funny. But right now it feels off. The situation just doesn't feel right.
I'm with you. I think it's been strangely handled Listen, you can understand why last season things weren't exactly moving with new contracts, because it's not just Neil as well. I mean, obviously Serkin's in the last year, but even the new and improved contracts that have been being signed, Trey Hume the other day, Mayenda shortly before that. You're not going to be, if you're an agent who's worth any money at all, you're going to advise your client in a promotion season or a potential promotion season, wait until they go up and then they're going to offer you more money. It's not rocket science. So I don't hold it against Dan Neil at all that he hasn't signed a contract before this summer. But then you do just wonder, like, why are you not signing one the day after Wembley? Like, you're the captain, you're starting every week, we're going into the Premier League, this is your club and you're from the academy. What's the hold up? Now, none of us know. It could be from Neil's end, it could be from the club's end, it could be any number of factors. It could be the wages, it could be the length, it could be where Labrie sees him in the squad. It could be any number of factors. So it's not really fair to start. I've seen a few people, particularly on social media, Neil's not committed. He's not, he's not up for it. He's not focused. If he was, he'd have signed already. I think that's all very unfair and quite reductive, because so many moving parts in any negotiation. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, he captained us. He's a local lad. He captained us at Wembley to a promotion. I want him to stay. I think that's what we all. One of the things we all love about football is that romantic side of it. It's the dream we all had as kids. Pulling the shirt on, scoring a cup final goal, or playing against the Mags and winning the league and that. Like that's what makes us all love football. So I want to see as many of the academy lads stay for as long as possible. But then obviously the pragmatic side kicks in, and like you say, he needs to sign that new contract, because if he doesn't, how much can we afford to let, and I hate to say these words, pure profit in terms of PSR, walk out the club for nothing? And I hate that that's something we have to consider, but it is relevant because, we see it with Tommy Watson this summer and Bellingham to a degree. We sold them for a combined, whatever it was, 40 million, give or take. But then that lets us spend vastly more money because of what it unlocks in the accounts and all that nonsense. Neil is another one of those players where you really, from a business point of view and a club point of view, it's criminal negligence if he walks out the door for nothing next summer. So whether that's signing a new contract, getting a fee this summer, whatever the solution is, we need some sort of long-term solution. But having said all that, I'll also go back on myself and say, whether he signs or not, I would like to see Dan Neil in the Sunderland shirt this season. I think he's got plenty to offer, and I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I think it was a scapegoat as well a bit. Like scapegoat's maybe the wrong word, but he had to do things last season, dirty work, off the ball. It wasn't his preferred position. He sacrificed a lot for the sake of the team last season. You remember, he got off to a pretty iffy start of the season as well, and he was able to rescue it. I don't know. I want to see Dan Neil do well, but let's go back to West Ham. Last sort of 5 minutes. Thought we'd do an hour, so we'll just go over an hour. How do you see the game going? I did a video earlier today where I was talking about how I saw it in terms of, I don't think Sunderland will sit in a low block. I think people are looking at the playoffs and thinking immediately that is how Sunderland are going to tackle the Premier League. They're going to sit in, let teams come at them and try and hit them on the break. I don't think Sunderland will do that. I think they'll look at West Ham at home with all the additions we've brought in, and they'll try and hit teams on I say transition, but what I mean by that is just playing through the thirds quickly. Yeah. The idea, I think, where Sunderland are going to succeed this season is getting the ball up the pitch quickly. I don't mean long balls. I just mean getting the ball, whether it's keeper to the centre-back to Xhaka plays the ball onto the wing crosses it, whatever. I feel like it's going to be quick football, very much like we saw at the start of last season, where we're not obsessing with just right, let's just retain possession. I'm not saying they won't do that at times, but this Sunderland team has been designed, in my opinion, to be a transition football team, a team that works really well, transitioning the ball up the pitch and then being very good at transitioning defensively. That's why they've brought in quick players. That's why they've got players like Xhaka in there to help protect the back four. That's how I see this. And I think if Sunderland win this game against West Ham, it will come from them executing that game plan and not getting bogged down in trying to keep the ball around the back, not getting bogged down in, worrying too much about what West Ham are doing. Obviously, Libri will think about that, but the way we win this game, in my opinion, is getting through the thirds quickly and getting the ball from our box to their box in a quick fashion, not long ball, but on the deck, going through the midfield in a good way. That's how I think we'll approach this game, and that's how I think we'll win this game. What about you? Do you think it's similar to that? Do you think they'll maybe go to more what we saw last season at the end of the season, where they were much more defensively resolute in trying to stop the opposition from scoring?
No, I'm with you. I think if I had to compare it to performance from last season, I'd just go back to Sheffield Wednesday at home at the start. I'm not expecting us to turn up and stick 4 past West Ham. I would like that, but we were much more aggressive and front-footed in that Sheffield Wednesday game, and generally in that start of season period, than we were towards the end. I think there's going to be plenty of games this season where we will want to play like we did towards the end and in the playoffs, where we need to sit back, just absorb stuff, take the pressure on, and then look for the moments to counter-attack. But that's an excellent point about the physicality of West Ham. This is a game, and this is also why I can see the logic behind Sadiki over Lafay, because this is the kind of game where if we let them dictate the terms, particularly of that midfield battle, they're just going to walk all over us. We need to be able to, so again, like you said, not sit too deep. Yes, don't overcommit and don't be stupid and go first game back in the Premier League. Let's stick 8 men in their half and try and score. Within the bounds of defensive responsibility, we need to be able to, not win the territorial battle as in keep them camped in their half, but don't let them push us back. Don't give up 5-10 yards and drop towards your own box for no reason. Press them, get at them. Don't overcommit, but be ready. When there's a loose touch, when there's a misplaced pass, when there's something, and then like you say, transitions, getting between the lines, that has to be quick. And so I expect us to, this game and the majority of the season, we'll have less of the ball than the opposition, but it won't be because we just intentionally give the ball away loads. It'll be because when we've got the ball, what we want to do is, with pace, move through the lines, move through the thirds, play that kind of, often it'll be a counter-attack, but it doesn't need to be a counter-attack to still be quick and direct. And because we play quick and direct, we'll just have the ball for a shorter period of time every time we get it. Whereas when we're defending, Lebris has shown he's completely comfortable with letting teams have the ball where they can't hurt us. So if West Ham have got loads of the ball in the middle third of the pitch and they're pinging it left and right and they're looking silky, and yeah, that's fine. You can't hurt us there. You can hurt us 30 yards and in, where you start swinging crosses in and you can start playing, threading through balls and having a shot from distance. That's where I expect us to be really, feisty and aggressive and battling. But I think basically from sort of 30 yards up is where we're going to say, if you want the ball there, that's fine by us. You can have it. Because whatever you do with it over there, you're not putting it in our net. But yeah, I think the general blueprint for me has to be closer to the start of last season than the end, because we've got to take advantage of first game back in the Premier League for so long. The atmosphere is going to be brilliant. It's going to be a full house. I mean, I looked at the forecast. It might not quite be the 30 degrees, sun cracking the pavements it's been during the week, but it's still August. It's like a nice warm day. I'm sure people will have a couple of beers. Like, the place is going to be rocking. So we need to be able to be aggressive and take advantage of that and not be too passive and sit off, which I think we were very passive against Coventry and Sheffield United because we had to be. Whereas I think here we have to be the opposite. Otherwise, we just risk getting, like I say, getting walked all over by West Ham, because as much as we've said they might struggle, they're an experienced Premier League side, so they'll take advantage if we're left wanting.
Yeah, if people want to drop their predictions in as well, I'll share a few on the screen of the 33 watching. Maybe 5 years might drop in their prediction. So we'll do our quick predictions. I think that Sunderland will win this game. I think this has got it reminds me of when we were West Ham, in the sense that we were the established Premier League team and we'd play early season games at newly promoted teams and get beat. I remember losing at Burnley, where David Nugent scored 2 off the bench. We battered them all game. We got beat 3-1, and it screams that to me that West Ham fans are like, why have we got to play a newly promoted team on the opening day? We haven't been in the Premier League for like 10 years. So I think Sunderland will win. I think they'll maybe win 2-0, 2-0, 2-1, something like that. But yeah, I think Sunderland will win. What about you?
It's going to be tight. No matter which way it goes, there's not more than one goal in this game. Either way. I'm quite confident, which obviously famous last words. What could possibly go wrong? But I'm with you. I think West Ham will have looked at this fixture when they got released and thought, could have done better than that. And, we've looked at it. We don't care who it is. We're like, it's a Premier League team. Happy days. It's a Premier League team for the first time in 9-10 years. Whereas they'll look at it and think, actually, that's a banana skin. So I fancy us to win 2-1, I'm going to say. I think it's going to be 0-0 at half time. I think they're going to go 1-0 up. Everyone's going to shit themselves. And then we're going to bring on Lefebvre, masterclass, 2 goals, happy days. Everyone's walking home absolutely chuffed.
I think Xhaka first goal. That's mine nailed on. It's
Xhaka
first goal or Xhaka red card. I feel like one of them is going to happen.
Yeah, if anyone ever is doing like a bet builder or whatever for a game and they have the option, it's like to score or get a card. Lump on Xhaka for that every week, because I tell you what, you'll just print money. I mean, you probably also have to bet on other things that aren't guaranteed, so maybe less printing money, And anyway, don't take gambling tips from me. Probably last time I won money, they were still counting on bloody stone tablets, man. So
no, we're not going to be a betting podcast or betting video. Not really a podcast, betting video channel. Right, some of the predictions in here: 1-0 Adingra. That would be lovely. Lovely opening day goal on a debut. 2-0 Hume, or is it Wapal Holm? Maybe from earlier. Hume to be first yellow card this season. He got sent off, didn't he, on the opening day a few seasons ago, didn't he? Against Ipswich. I have a memory of him getting 2 yellows. We got beat 2-1. For Pal Gav goes 1-0. Lefebvre off the bench. He's got your vibe there. Lefebvre coming on and winning the game. Conspiracy. I don't know what the conspiracy is, but Conspiracy SAFC late at the party. 0-0, 1-0. Xhaka will take that. Don't say red card. Fair enough. Xhaka on penalties. Yeah.
Well, after Hearts, it shouldn't be my end, should it?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We've got issues with penalties. We've got a set piece coach now, though. Maybe he's got some ideas on how to take penalty.
Oh, there we go. It's sorted. We're going to score every corner we get, and we're never going to concede off a set piece again, so we're sorted.
Yeah. I don't know what Charlton's penalty record was like, but maybe it was.
Well, actually, a load of Charlton fans seemed really unhappy when he left. So I'm hoping that wasn't the classic oh no, we're gutted, he's gone. How are we gonna cope? I'm hoping it's genuine.
Yeah. There we are. Hi, Connor and Johnny, and this is where we say bye. So hi and bye, Hutchinski. There we are. Thanks everyone for watching, though. Thanks for joining. I'll do more of these throughout the season. Maybe reactions to our opening day win against West Ham, provided we get a win. Be lovely. But yeah, we'll catch then. I'll schedule one in either on the weekend or next week. Johnny, thanks for joining us, and make sure everyone listens to Roker Report, where Johnny is there at least half of the time, I'd say.
Oh yeah,
50%. Yeah.
If there's some Sunderland audio content, there's a 50% chance it's got me. Just listen to stuff, lads, and you'll hear us.
Yeah, you'll hear you. Cool. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll catch you next time.